one night I was leaving my friend's house, and I'm not really sure what happened or where I went. I thought I was actually going to a parking lot to get high. And the next thing I know is there's a knock on my car window, and I immediately come to, and there's a tray of heroin and a tutor used to smoke the heroin in my other hand, and my forehead's on the steering wheel of my car. And I look to my left and I look up, and there's a sheriff there. And I have a car full of prescription drugs that aren't mine, balloons of cocaine, balloons of heroin, and pulled me out of the car. Asked me what was going on. I was very vague. I lied about it all. Obviously, they caught me. The evidence was very, very clear. It was right there in front of them. And he was very kind with me. He took me in, and this was probably the first person that ever approached me. He said, we're sitting in the police station. He's like, I could charge you with 3 felonies. And I said, please don't, And he said, I'll make you a deal. And I said, what's that? And he said, I won't charge you with these felonies if you go to treatment because you have a problem with drugs and alcohol. And I said, deal, because I'll do whatever it takes to get out of trouble, So I went to treatment. I didn't take it seriously. It was a 30-day program in Denver, Colorado, and I don't think I talked for 30 days, and now that I look back on that, it was that 13-year-old kid was still there because I had never emotionally progressed from that moment at 13 because I had been completely under the influence. And when I stopped doing drugs and tried to become clean and sober, I was still at the age of 13 emotionally. I didn't know what to say to these people. All I did was go to groups, sit there quietly with my head down and look at the floor. I didn't participate. And then go back to my room. I didn't involve myself with anybody else, And I don't know if part of that was because I didn't think I belonged there, because I didn't think I had a problem. At this point, I still think that I just like to party and get fucked up. So I left there and I was able to get about 30 days clean and sober, and then, 90 days clean and sober. And then on 90th day, I figured, it's time for me to do a little controlled pot smoking. And I hit the blunt, and 15 minutes later, I was drinking. About 3 days later, I was smoking cocaine, and a day later after that, I was back doing heroin. And then, it all started again for me. My girlfriend kicked me out, ended up in my own apartment, 2 college degrees, waiting tables, miserable, could barely get out of bed in the morning. And thank God for my dope dealer who would just come to my door and deliver, because without that, I'd have been a wreck, And my only real friend at that point, because I had pushed. Now, people didn't leave me. I had pushed these people away, my family, my friends, everybody who cared about me in my life, because I didn't want them to see what I was doing to myself. I knew I was killing myself, and I didn't ever have the balls to put the gun to my head and pull the trigger, but I could kill myself over a period of time and be okay with that, I was so hurt inside. The only way that I could possibly continue to live was to be emotionally numb and unavailable for anybody. My only real friend was my dog. My dog was there, and I still look back on to these days, and I'm just like, there was days where I couldn't even get out of bed and take my dog out to go to the bathroom, or feed my dog or feed myself. So one morning I woke up and I realized that, I can't do this any longer. I can't continue to live like this. I want more. It was one of those I want more out of life moments for me. I've had a couple of those. And I found myself going to a family friend's house and just completely breaking down, crying, and just asking for help. I need to go back to treatment. I need to go back to treatment because I can't do this any longer. I'm dying inside, So I left that family friend's house with my intent to go to treatment. And it was going to take me about 3 days for the bed to open up. And I figured, hey, I'm going to sell one of my cars. And basically, we're going to take all that money. I invited my good friend over and kind of this Mexican gangster over. And we just basically spent I don't know, I think it was almost $7,000 on drugs over the course of 3 days. And I was planning to bring a bunch of drugs to treatment with me because I didn't want to feel the pain of actually kicking heroin and cocaine and benzos. I figured I could slowly ease myself into that. So that morning, Sunday morning, I believe, I'm on my couch and homeboy says, hey, I'm gonna take a shower and then I'm gonna head home. I said, cool. And you can hear the difference between the water running in a person not in the shower as opposed to a person with the water running in the shower. And I could tell by listening that there was nobody in the shower. So I kind of peeked under the door and I could see feet going back and forth. And basically what was going on is this guy was robbing me of all the drugs that I had planned to take into treatment. So I went back to my couch, I reached under my couch, pulled out my gun, opened the door to confront a 6'3" Mexican gangster guy, filling a bag full of the drugs that I was planning on taking to treatment. You know, I couldn't have this. And he grabbed the gun. And the next thing you know, I'm on the ground, rolling around in a fight for my life for this pistol and thinking, you know, if this guy gets the gun, he's gonna shoot me. Somehow I got the gun, somehow I get away, and I pointed at his face, and the thought was in my head, dear God, what am I gonna tell the police? You know, because this house is full of drugs, you know, and we've just been on a 3-day tear. I mean, there's needles, there's crack pipes, there's all kinds of shit everywhere. Like, I'm in an apartment complex, somebody's gonna hear this gunshot. I can't shoot this guy, you know? And then right at that moment, the door opens and the family friend that I had went to 3 days prior walks in to the middle of this situation and says very calmly, why don't you just put down the gun, you go put on some clothes, you sit on the couch. And she may have saved my life because I'm really considering pulling the trigger because I'm scared that if we get back on the ground and fighting for this gun, then he's gonna kill me. He has no qualms about doing this, you know? And the secondary thought is, well, after I shoot him, what am I gonna do with all this paraphernalia and the drugs that I have in this apartment? So one of those moments where you're like, something going on here. So I make it down to treatment. I come to Arizona in 2011 to go to treatment at a treatment center. And this is probably the first time in my life that I ever take it seriously. Something happened one day. It was early morning walking into a 7 o'clock meeting, and we would sit on the far edges of the room, in the back of the room. And this older gentleman walked up to us and said, me and my friend, walked up to us and said, those who sit on the edge tend to fall off. If you sit in the middle, you have a better chance of staying. Well, I mean, at that point, we got up and we sat in the middle of the room. And meeting happened, and I went to get up, and this gentleman, who was probably about 75 years old, grabbed my arm and said, do you have a sponsor? And I said, no. And he said, well, you do now, you know. And that was the first time that, like, I ever was contemplating doing work that I was needed to make the changes in my life. So I took down his number and I called him, and every morning we would meet and we would do step work. Things started to see things a bit differently. Things started to change inside, not outside. You know, the outside is not where you're looking for the change, or at least I wasn't. It's the inside, you know, those feelings that I've always had that were continued to persist throughout my life that caused me to find a solution for the way that I felt. I lived in a halfway house, which I would never have done before. I rode a bicycle to work every day, you know, and it was a very humbling experience for me, and that's exactly what I needed because I was so full of myself, you know. I was the center of my universe, you know, and in actual reality, that's not the case. And this allowed me the ability to kind of continue to see things differently, in that it wasn't about what I wanted in life, it's about what I needed. None of these things did I seek really out for myself. You know, these linchpins in the change that slowly occurred were things that were or gifts. I didn't seek out a sponsor. I wasn't the one driving the bus in my life. I was merely taking suggestions because I was so beaten and surrendered by drugs and alcohol at that point that I would do absolutely anything to stop living the way that I was living. I was 29 years old at that point, and I couldn't put together sober time to save my life. So I got out, and my life started to change, and I moved out of the sober house after 4 months. My initial intent was to stay there for a month, 30 days. That's all I'm doing. Don't ask me to stay any longer. I'd move back in now. I love that place. I go back there every week. But I spent 4 months there, and that's not me. I don't do those type of things. Continue to go to meetings, sponsored men, was able to get a real job again, and my life started to change for the better. I was able to form great relationships with my family. I was able to repair relationships with my mother, my father, and my sister. And then these are things that I thought were beyond repair in my life because of the damage and the hurt that I had caused these people. My mom tells me today that there was times that she wouldn't sleep because she would just wait for that phone call. Your son's in prison, your son's in jail, your son's dead. And thank God she never got that. But you think, what's that cause to what does that do to a person? That's just crazy. But my life slowly got better, and that was a direct result of being involved in a fellowship, something that I had never done before, because I had decided that my way didn't work, so I better start looking at some different avenues of recovery here. And the suggestions that were given to me, not only in treatment but in the rooms as well, I started to follow those, and my life started to change. It continuously got better, and it got to the point where it got so great that I decided that I didn't actually need to go to meetings anymore because, well, I have everything I need, right? I have a beautiful girlfriend, I have lots of money, I got the cars back, everybody loves me. I'm good. And this is about 3.5 years in. I have my dream job, and I've arrived at 33 years old. I've arrived. Life cannot get any better than this. But that feeling of complete and utter loneliness had just enveloped my soul again. Because as I started to remove fellowship, program, steps, sponsorship out of myself, I started to fill that hole back up with control, power, women, money, and material things. And those thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and actions that I had had my whole entire life manifested themselves yet again. They reared their ugly head because I was not consistent about what I was doing. I didn't stay the path. Things got so big, things got so good for me, my ego returned. And I didn't even realize it, and I stepped away from the program in about 2014. And I was at a concert on a date, and I hit a joint. I didn't even think about it, A person passed me a joint, I hit it, blew it out. First thought was, shit, what did I just do? Second thought was, oh my God, I feel great. And that feeling that I felt when I was 13 years old, instantly felt that again. Wasn't alone anymore. I didn't have any shame. That sense of belonging was right back, And the progression was extremely rapid this time. Within 4 months, I was strung out on crack and heroin, and I remember one day sitting in a crack house in a business suit, and everybody in the crack house has HIV. I'm watching this one guy beat his pregnant girlfriend. I'm sitting across the table from two toothless 65-year-old women. And I kind of look down at myself, and I see the Burberry scarf and the nice suit and the nice shoes. And as I look up, I see all these things going around me, and it's just, what the fuck am I doing here, What, did this really just happen again? And at that point, I knew what to do. I needed to reach back out for help. And, I come from an Irish Catholic family, and, we're all blessed with this disease of alcoholism. So the call was to a family member. So I reached out to my cousin, and I asked him, I told him what was going on, and he took me to a meeting. And, he said, what's your plan? I said, well, I'm going to get on some Suboxone. That'll really help. I can slowly do this. I keep my job, I keep my life together. I said, okay, just give that a shot. So I went to the Suboxone doctor, got me some Suboxone, and didn't take a single one. I actually sold them for crack because I was never really serious. The drugs had such a hold over me that they controlled everything I did. From the second I woke up in the morning to the second I fell asleep, I was a slave to the drugs. I reached out to my parents and I said, I called my insurance company first, and I inquired about going back to treatment. Luckily, I had good insurance, and I was able to get into a treatment center, called them, and they said there'll be a bed open on Thursday. This is a Tuesday. Get to the airport, speak with my parents, and between the flight from Columbus, Ohio to Phoenix, Arizona, that bed that was supposed to open up on Thursday became available for me that evening, which is a miracle because I couldn't wait any longer. I did the last dope in the bathroom at Phoenix Airport and got in the car, drove right to the rehab center and got in there to the Detox and detoxed off heroin and got into the residential portion of it, and I was completely and utterly miserable, In 2011, I was smiling through treatment. 2015, 14/15, I was miserable, because there was a ton of shame and guilt involved in my relapse and bringing that public. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I did the same thing that I did in 08, which was put my head down, go to groups, not talk at all, not involve myself with anybody. I was able to, because I was on Family Medical Leave Act, I was able to persuade, let's say, the therapists into letting me out of residential treatment after 17 days and putting me into a partial hospitalization program. I got out on Wednesday, did my first day of PHP, didn't really involve myself in the group, and then on Friday night at about 5 o'clock, I was nodding out of my bathroom on heroin again. Do I have any idea why I did that? No. Do I really care? Not really. I did that probably because I didn't know what else to do. I still at this point had not gotten back to the place where I knew how to remove myself from myself, because I'm the problem. Drugs are just merely my solution to my problem. Finally, they just kicked me out. They've had enough with me. Get out of here. You're not serious about that. And they're right, I wasn't serious about it. Look at my actions. What does that tell you? I continued to probably use for about another week, and then I humbly dragged myself back to their detox. And I got to that point of desperation. There's a great acronym for God, right? It's the gift of desperation. And for people like myself, that is exactly what we need, because without that desperation, I'm not really that serious about what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it or why I'm even going to do this. Am I doing it for my family, my friends, or am I doing this for myself? So, while in detox, I really started to take things seriously again. I remember that there was probably like 12 people in the detox wing with me, and nobody would show up to these outside meetings that the fellowships would bring into us, and I would show up to every single one because I was serious. It was that time in my life again where I was like, I need to do something different because this shit's not working. It's that when the pain is so great that I'll actually do something to make that change. But until that pain's not great enough, I'm gonna sit there and sulk in that pain. And it had gotten to the point where, that the pain was so great that I had to do something because I just couldn't take it anymore. So I took it seriously, and I did 7 days in detox, got out, went through that PHP program successfully, and I did stuff that I had never done before. Part of this disease is having, an ego, and I would stand up in meetings announcing that I was less than 30 days sober. I also stood up in meetings asking for a sponsor, and these are things that I'd never done before. Another thing that I did was I went and got a 24-hour chip. When you have less than 24 hours or 24 hours sober, you get one of these things. And these things I was never willing to do before. But again, kind of like in 2011, I was willing to do things differently because the way that I was living wasn't working for me. I sit here, a sober man today with 200 and some odd days sober, and my life is completely different than it was 230 days. What I've come to realize in this program and in this life for me is that every day is nothing but a new beginning. I'm afforded the ability because of my sobriety to live every day exactly how I want it to be, because I've been given back the power to choose. Sure, I could go out today and I could pick up a drink, or I could choose to do something differently. But when in active addiction, there was no power of choice. There was only getting high. I couldn't say, you know what, I'm not going to get high today, or I'm not going to drink today. It just wasn't there. So today I get to make that conscious decision where I'm going to lead a better life and better my life, as opposed to I'm stuck and the only solution that I have is getting loaded. I mean, there's so much I'd want to say to a person in that situation, because I've been there so many times in my life. Doing this for 20 years, it is possible, and the way that you're feeling right now is not the way that you have to feel tomorrow. And if you just take that step in the right direction, there will be somebody's hand in which you can place yours that will help guide you through this process. And recovery is definitely possible. And that just takes willingness and the ability to do the things that you're probably uncomfortable doing at this time, And in life, it's those uncomfortable moments that you find yourself in that really help grow you.